Hey, it's Yay for Yarn, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet in the back loop only and in the front loop only. So these are fairly simple techniques, and they're not like used in every single pattern, but they are pretty common. They're not anything that's like, super rarely used. But there is a difference between the two. And so when we work into the back loop only, that's usually abbreviated BLO. And if we work into the front loop only, then that's usually abbreviated FLO. You have to just check what your pattern says as far as the abbreviations key in your pattern. So first of all, I want to explain what this means when we work into the back loop only or into the front loop only. So I have a swatch here. This is worked into the front loop only, and this is worked into the back loop only. So believe it or not, these are both the same number of rows. So these are both the same width in the stitches, and they're both the same number of rows. So if we put them over top of each other, the width is the same, but the piece that's worked in the front loop only is significantly longer than the piece that's worked in the back loop only. And this is because when we work into the back loop only, it kind of creates this ribbing texture, and where all the rows kind of shrink into each other, where they kind of like crinkle, zigzag together, and you can't really see that too well from the side, but they are kind of crinkled and ribbed, and so that makes the length of the piece worked in the back loop only kind of shrink down and contract. Because if we stretch this out to where it would normally be if we worked it in both loops, then it would be about the same size as this one. But because of that working in the back loop only, it kind of contracts down and shrinks up and creates this ribbed texture. So first I want to talk about what it means to work in the back loop only or in the front loop only. And to do this, we need to look at the top of a stitch. So here's my next stitch. Let's look at the top of this stitch. Normally, when we would insert into a stitch to work into it, we would work into this top loop or both strands of the top of that stitch. So this is what the top of a stitch normally looks like. So in the top of this stitch, there are two strands. The front strand is the one closest to you, and then the back strand is the one that's further away. So when we work into the back loop only or into the front loop only, that means that we're not inserting our hook like this, the way we normally would, but we're either inserting into only that front strand or only that back strand, okay? So this will produce different results, and it will also kind of, be affected by what your pattern is actually using it for. So in this swatch, I'm working in the front loop only, and this is just single crochet. So I'm going to, instead of inserting my hook like this into both strands, I'm going to insert my hook only into that strand that's closest to me, and then work my single crochet. And again, I'm going to insert into the front loop, which is the strand closest to me, single crochet into that, and again, only into that front strand. You can see how this other strand, which is the back loop, that's just sitting behind the stitches. It's not being worked into. So again, every time I work a stitch, I'm working into only that front strand of the stitch below. Now sometimes the pattern will tell you to work one stitch in the front loop only or back loop only. Sometimes it'll tell you to work a whole row or round in the front loop only or in the back loop only. And the purpose of that can vary. It depends on what your pattern is using it for. But generally, if we're using it working back and forth or even working in the round, and it's just a straight piece, then we're just going to be getting some textural lines on our work. So let me put this down. I'm to the end of my row. You can see here that each row has this extra line of what looks like these little twisted strands that run across. And because we're working back and forth in rows, some of those strands are on this side, and then the ones in between that don't look like they have it, they do, but it shows up on the opposite side. If we were working in the round, then you would see this little ridge of twisted strands on every single round if we were going in a continuous, in the same direction for every round. But since we're turning at the end of every row, we get every other row of those twisted strands is on this side, and then the ones in between are on the other side. So that's what it looks like to work into the front loop only for every row, going back and forth. Now let's look at the back loop only here, because like I said, these are both single crochet and they're both the same number of rows, but this contracts down quite a bit and gets shorter in length. So this creates a fabric that is very stretchy because that ridged or ribbed texture, it kind of contracts the length of our piece, but it gives room for that to stretch a lot further. Whereas with this, it has a decent amount of stretch, but it's not like anything drastically more than what you would have if you worked regular single crochet. So back loop only stitches, and this applies whether you're working single crochet or anything else, but back loop only stitches kind of shrink up a little bit and contract. Now it depends on the context, of course, but single crochet is the one that does that the most. Unless you're working rows of slip stitches, which also contract and make a very nice ribbing. But taller stitches don't really shrink up as much, but they still give you a ridged type of texture. Whereas in the front loop only, this is a very smooth, flat fabric, and it just has these little rows of twisted strands. So let's work into the back loop only. So I am again working back and forth in rows with single crochet. So again, here is our entire stitch, the whole top of that stitch. The front loop only is the one closer to us, and the back loop only is the one that's further away. So I'm going to only insert my hook into that strand that's in the back, that's further away from me. And this will also leave a row of twisted strands, but it will be on the opposite side from the front loop only one. So when we work into the front loop only, then the row of twisted strands ends up on the back of the row that we're working right now. Whereas when we work into the back loop only, it ends up on the front of the row that we're working right now. And like I mentioned before, this can be used over a few stitches or over all the stitches in a round or whatever. And this can also be used in a case where maybe you want to come back later and then add another layer of crochet to this. You could come back and then crochet into these unworked loops. The front loops that's remaining after we worked this round of the back loop. Once your piece is finished for this, then you could come back with another color or another strand of the same yarn and crochet into the ridge, those unworked loops, the front loops that are already there. And you can do that to create like ruffles or surface embellishments or whatever. So both of these fabrics are pretty different. They're not drastically different from the regular fabric, but they do make enough of a difference that these fabrics can be used to your advantage in some situations. So for example, if I wanted to do something where, say I wanted to make the next piece of the fabric fold very easily and make kind of like a fold line where it's already, you don't have to like bend it to make it fold. It already kind of naturally folds in that place. Then you would use something like this to make that fold line. Because for example, if I wanted this to fold this way, then I could work a row in the back loop only and then just continue in regular single crochet, and it would create that line there where it naturally wants to fold that direction. and it creates a very sharp, crisp corner. So if you were making something where you wanted it to fold around a corner, then it would make a very nice, clean line there where it folds. And it would also give you just this little ridge of detail, kind of showing off that perfectly folded corner. Whereas with the front loop only, not that you can't do that with front loop only, but front loop only is generally used more for a texture thing where that you can see those little ridges. And especially if you're using it in the round, that is also, it also looks really good in the round because you're going to be constantly seeing this little row of twisted strands, and it adds another level of texture to the fabric without doing anything real complicated. And that can make a really nice texture with those rows of twisted strands that you wouldn't ordinarily get from working the stitches, in both loops of the stitch below. So now if you ever happen to run into the instructions for front loop only or back loop only in a pattern, now you know what that means and how to do it. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know how you have used front loop only and back loop only in your projects in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, making sure you click the little bell next to the subscribe button to be notified of new videos. Thanks for watching.